Good.
Happy September to you, Craig.
Hey, happy September to you, Joe.
So,
Is it a
yeah,
happy September? Is it
it,
is it really?
speaking of, yeah, there's we're so used to meaningful baseball in September, and you know, now in September and September the 14th, the Nationals are on the tail end of their season. Baseball season's about to end, and well, things haven't quite gone as planned.
Yeah, not so much. Since we last left our heroes, things have gone downhill quite a bit.
Yeah, and just to
Quite a
remind
bit.
everybody,
I know you
go ahead,
go ahead.
please.
I know you missed a little bit. But the Nationals were actually doing quite well, and they had come to, I believe it was within 4 games of the Mets, when the Mets were coming to town for a big series.
Yeah, it hasn't turned out quite the way that that it didn't turn out the way they wanted to. And you're right. For a while there, the with the way things were going for the Nats, they were playing pretty well coming into that series. Had they won five in a row going into that series with the Mets? Maybe is Craig there or no?
I'm here. You're barely there.
Oh, okay. Um, yeah, I think they'd won five in a row before the Mets series. Is that accurate? Five out of six.
Yeah, it was a really good stretch. They were playing good baseball. They were scoring a lot of runs. They were getting fantastic shutdown pitching, and everything was looking really good. I know there were a lot of good vibes, a lot of hopes that you know, oh, we don't need to sweep anymore. We can get
Right.
within 2 games and it won't be that big of a deal. Uh, but we're hoping for 2 of 3.
Right.
And it shaped up well for the pitching. It shaped up well for pretty much everything except for Mets Devil Magic.
And other things that we'll discuss here at some point here very soon. But
Yeah.
um, I really, it turned out well for 6 innings of baseball 3 nights in a row. Is basically what ended up happening. Is that not accurate? I mean, I didn't watch the games, but you were among those that did, I assume.
Yeah, I watched them. It was bad. I don't have the numbers of the bullpen in front of me, but it was a preposterous number of runs given up in the last 3 innings. The seventh inning has just turned into a nightmare for every single member of the Nationals team organization, and especially a fella named Drew Storen.
Yeah, which we'll talk about fairly extensively here pretty soon, I think. But you're right. What the Nationals needed to do at the moment was to be able to. I'm cutting out a lot, huh? Um,
To me, you are, yes.
if you are listening and I'm cutting out, please tweet me and I'll see if I can fix something. But what ended up happening, what the Nationals absolutely
Dear
needed to
me.
do was win the series with the Mets. That was an important series. They needed to win that series. When they did not win that series, that was pretty much the nail on the coffin for their season. And then when they got swept by the Mets, that was it. You can't go into a series with the team that is within arm's reach and then get swept in astonishingly terrible fashion at the end of um, at the end of the season. You have to put yourself in a spot to win, and the Nationals just did not do that at all.
No, it was really, really bad. There was, I believe, 5 straight games where the Nationals were leading going into the final 3 innings of the game and lost every single one of them. It was a bloodbath. It was everything that could go wrong did go wrong, and in the most grand fashion of horribleness. So it was rough, and it's over now, and the Nationals have gone on a little bit of a slide since then. They came into Miami after getting swept, being down, I think it was 7 games, losing another half game on an off day, and then dropping the first two against the Fish in just lackluster fashion. It didn't even look like they wanted to be there, and you can't really blame them too much. Obviously, they're professionals, but they saw their season just wither away and die in the 3 games prior, so they just weren't even able to get it done.
Yeah, and lackluster. Like you said, lackluster. I've given up fashion, kind of, unfortunately. Yeah, it is really terribly unfortunate. I think, Craig, you might be the one cutting out a little bit, actually.
Yeah, I see that.
Yeah.
My microphone experiment's probably not working, so we're gonna just go like. Can you hear me now?
Yes, you sound really terrible, but I can hear you.
Oh well, I don't like sounding terrible, but it's better,
Wait, yeah, no, actually, it's better now that your microphone's gotten used to some stuff. It's just a lot more sensitive now. Technical difficulties.
Okay.
Episode 101 of Matt's Talk on the Go. Yeah, this is actually much better quality.
This is why we can't have nice things.
Exactly. Yeah, you sound significantly better now. Okay, good. This will be a better
Okay, I tried.
You made the effort. Godspeed.
A for effort. This is what happens. Thank you, at Heather K in DC.
Yes, HK, or Kelly in the Pugs, as we prefer to call her.
Oh, dang. Gangsta.
Yeah, we fixed it, Johan.
Yeah, we got it.
Hopefully, at least, because you sound much better now.
Oh, thanks. I think you sound pretty great too, Joe.
Oh, thanks, dude. Appreciate it. So what I actually want to talk about a little bit here, now that we can actually have a conversation and I feel like I can hear you, is I want to reiterate a point here before, there's a lot of things that we need to talk about throughout the season about what went wrong, what could be improved going into next year, and we're going to hit all of those topics. But what I want to say is this. The Nationals were a World Series favorite coming into this year by just about everybody. Understandably so. I completely understand why that was in that situation. You look at the roster construction, you look at the starting pitching, you look at what happened in 2014 during the regular season, and you say this team is built to win, they're built to contend. You have, at the beginning of the year, you have Bryce Harper starting an MVP caliber season. There are a lot of things lining up for success. But what I really want to reiterate is making the playoffs in any professional sport, basically, is really, really hard. Making up the playoffs in baseball is very, very, very difficult. Making the playoffs in the NFL is incredibly difficult. Making the playoffs in basketball, not so difficult sometimes. But for the most part, it's really difficult to make the playoffs. I did some digging around just to kind of see if we could put a little perspective on the fact that the Nationals are, wow, your computer is going to take off now. Unless there is a miracle, the Nationals will not be making the postseason. But to kind of put some sort of level of perspective on it, National League teams to win their division since 2012. Oh my God. The National. What are you doing? Are you okay, Craig? Okay. So National League teams to win the division since 2012. Twice since 2012, I'm sorry. The Cardinals, the Nationals, and the Dodgers. That's it. It's incredibly difficult to win the division 2 times out of 4 seasons, essentially. It doesn't happen all that much. Teams don't do it. Other teams to make the playoffs in that period twice in the National League, the Pirates, the Braves, the Giants, the Reds. So less than half of the National League in the last 4 years has made the playoff twice. It's very difficult to build a team that year in and year out makes the playoffs. There are so many things that can happen, and we're going to talk about a lot of those things throughout the course of this podcast. But there are a lot of things that can conspire against a team in order to not make the playoffs. And unfortunately, a lot of those things happened with the Washington Nationals, and there are a lot of reasons why those things might happen. So I just want to remind people that you can't just say, oh, look at the team on paper, they're definitely going to make the playoffs, and be done with it. It's very difficult to make the playoffs year in, year out. If the Nationals had made the playoffs this season, they would have made it 3 out of the last 4 seasons, which is just It just doesn't happen. You don't do that. The only team that's done that in the last 4 years is the Cardinals in Major League Baseball. It just doesn't happen.
And the Cardinals have devil magic.
Yes, they have devil magic and a pretty incredibly well-run organization.
Yeah.
From top to bottom. So I don't know if you have anything that you want to add to that before we move on, but I just want to remind people that, it really does suck being in a situation, especially with the expectations, and they're totally reasonable expectations, but this happens. Teams with expectations miss the playoffs.
Yeah, it does happen. Just look at the Nationals 2012 campaign. The Braves were expected to be that team, not necessarily contender to the level of the Nationals, but they were supposed to win the East.
They were universally
the Nationals came out of nowhere
for a
with
couple of people that may have picked the Phillies, but they were universally picked to win the division.
Pretty much, yeah. And the Nationals seemingly came out of nowhere, so a lot like the Mets did this year. With I know we're going to talk about the Mets a little bit more later, but I mean it's the same almost carbon copy. You take some stellar young pitching and some great talent, and it just fits at the same time all together, and they made some noise big time.
Yeah, exactly, and that happens really all the time.
Yeah.
But on that note, we have to talk about what went wrong with the season. We cannot have the conversation. And I know that we when I sent out the link that we were going to talk about the podcast, it was a lot of like, ooh, yay, But if you're listening to the show, you can't talk at this point in the season about the Washington Nationals without just it's not post-mortem time yet, but it's kind of post-mortem time to look back and see, there's, like I said, unless there's some sort of unbelievably incredible miracle, the Nationals their season will end on October 4th or 3rd or whenever the last day of the season is. And so you have to talk about what went wrong. And I have a list of 3 things that went wrong. I don't know if you have any sort of thoughts around what went wrong, but why don't you just take the first thing that comes to mind about what went wrong with the season, and we'll go from there.
Okay. So the first thing that comes to my mind that went wrong is every single member of the Washington Nationals got hurt at some point, except for Ian Desmond, who was terrible for 3 months. Yeah.
And that's the first thing on my list. I think it's the first thing you have to look at when you look at what went wrong with the team. There, like we said, there are others that we're going to discuss, but when you look at Jason Worth missing time, Anthony Rendon missing time, Denard Span basically missing the entire season, Ryan Zimmerman missing a significant portion of the season. Who am I missing? Is that it for the offense for the most part, besides bench players? And then you have Steven Strasburg that spent time on the disabled list a couple of times. Doug Fister, who spent time on the disabled list, and who knows what's going on with Doug Fister. The entire bullpen, essentially. Aaron Barrett unfortunately having Tommy John surgery.
Can you imagine what this season would have been like with a healthy Aaron Barrett and a healthy Craig Stammen?
I was at my parents' house yesterday, hanging out, and we were talking. My dad and I were chatting about Craig Stammen, and just how just not having Craig Stammen for the Washington Nationals changed the entire dynamic of that bullpen. It made such a significant difference not having Craig Stammen there. Craig Stammen, who could pitch 2 or 3 innings, and who would also have, by track record, been an incredibly good 7th inning pitcher, which is where the Nationals could not get anything to work right all year. It would have changed really the whole dynamic of the season to have Craig Stammen healthy. And Aaron Barrett, who pitched well at times during the year, but now we know he was having elbow issues all year and unfortunately had to have Tommy John surgery, and he'll pretty much miss all of 2016 as well. You're right. Those two guys being healthy might have changed the entire dynamic of the season.
Yeah, I think it would have made the world of difference. I mean, even if the Nationals hadn't traded Jerry Blevins in spring training to the rival New York Mets, who weren't supposed to be a contender, and Tyler Clippard over to the A's. And I know that trade has worked out a little bit well for the Nationals, but those are some key bullpen pieces from last year that would have, even just one of them would have been a major improvement over what the Nationals have been getting for the last few months.
Yeah, I mean, no doubt about it. And a lot of people have said, yeah, they shouldn't have traded Tyler Clippard because he would have been. And you're right, he would have been a great piece to have at the back end of that bullpen. But for the first 3 months of the season, you don't have Yunel Escobar on the team. There is literally no one hitting baseballs but Bryce Harper. If you don't have Yunel Escobar and Danny Espinosa, I guess, but if you don't have Yunel Escobar, I mean, I can't even imagine how bad the offense would have been for the first few months of the season without Yunel Escobar. So he's a player that you needed. So that it was a shrewd move, and it worked out all right. It's just amplified by injuries and the inability of bullpen to consistently get outs. So the next item that I have on my list for the what went wrong segment is the bullpen. I mean, just it's incredible to look at the bullpen and what went wrong with it. And I wonder, and the question I really want to ask you on this is, we've said a lot, you and I both have said a lot, bullpen pieces are expendable. You can just find guys on the street and get them in the bullpen and they're going to do a passable job. Is that still true in your mind? And Craig's gone. I've lost a Craig. So I'm going to keep talking about that topic because to me, I've said for a long time that you can get guys off the street on a 1-year deal. Bullpen arms are a dime a dozen. You just get a guy in there. He could pretty much do the job. You have a couple of good guys in there. You see what happens. I don't know that that's the case so much anymore with what I've seen throughout the course of the year. Not saying that you go the other way and you do what the Giants did with a guy like Jeremy Affeldt, where you get him and you sign him to like a 4-year, $40-something million deal. I don't think you should spend that much money on your bullpen, but I think there is something to spending money on relievers and shoring up those late innings, especially when you're a team that's largely based around pitching. When you have starting pitchers that are good, that can take you 7 innings, 6-7 innings, but you're in modern Major League Baseball, you're just not counting on guys finishing seasons. And ultimately, when you can't count on guys to finish finish games, you have to have quality arms at the back end of the bullpen. Theoretically, Jonathan Papelbon should be that guy. Drew Storen should have been that guy, but the bullpen didn't have that. So to me, to spend money on a bullpen is and spending some years is maybe something the Nationals want to look at doing here going forward, which I never would have said because Craig and I have both said for a long time, you need to, you can pick up arms off the street.
Hey, Joe.
And your video is still up, so you can kill the video and then you can say what you were going to say on the topic.
I just want to say hi again. Hi, everyone.
Okay.
How you guys doing?
So,
I'm sorry, I missed that whole thing. Thank you for bearing with me. This is the first actual recording we've done in different places while I'm at my new house in Leesburg.
Yeah.
And we've had obviously some technical difficulty. I have abandoned the computer and I am now on my iPad. And does it sound okay?
It sounds perfectly fine.
I can hear you. I'm very sorry about that.
That's okay. So I was saying, have you changed your mind on the bullpen pitchers or dime a dozen?
Somewhat.
Yeah.
I've somewhat changed my mind. I think you have to have a better mix than the Nationals have had. There are good bullpen pieces that are available a dime a dozen without having to go with retreads and just retreads and rookies.
Yeah.
And then Drew Storen, because obviously that hasn't really worked so much at all. And I know you I heard you speaking a little bit about Jonathan Papelbon, but I think having him at the back end is great, but I think you need to get some late 20s arms in there, if that makes sense. Not necessarily some guys you call up from the bullpen without major league experience, because that hasn't worked that well. And I know Felipe Rivero has been pretty darn good, but you can't really depend on that kind of performance from someone who's never seen the major leagues. So I think there needs to be a better balance instead of just relying on those pieces. I think you really need to spend a little money. Don't go crazy. We're not talking, who was that Dodgers pitcher that got like a 3-year, $36 million contract or something absurd as a relief pitcher.
I used Jeremy Affeldt getting that 4-year, $40-something million
Yeah.
left-handed reliever for the Giants. Like that.
Yeah.
That was the example that I used while you were difficultying.
Yeah, I was difficultying. But yeah, I mean, you don't need to spend that kind of money, but there's good arms to be had that you can get for around $8 to $12 million, which may sound like a lot to us, but in reality, that's
and in modern baseball, that's the kind of money you're going to have to spend.
That's a win and a half.
Yeah, it's a win and a half kind of caliber player.
Right. So I think there's I know you and I and some other people in Natstown, we love to talk about Matt Williams, but some of this has got to fall on Rizzo as well. No question.
For sure. The next thing on my what went wrong list is Matt Williams. But you're right. For all of the credit that Mike Rizzo deserves, and it's a lot, he deserves a lot of credit for the way he built the team over the years. The draft picks that he made, the way that he's made other GMs look silly with the trades he was able to accomplish. But you're right. You absolutely have to look at it and say, did he do enough to predict that Ryan Zimmerman is going to get hurt?
Because Ryan Zimmerman always gets hurt. You should always know that Ryan.
That's going to happen.
Yeah, that's something that always happens. As sure as
the sun rises in the east, Ryan Zimmerman's going to get hurt every year.
Yes, I was going to say something a little bit more obscure, but I like yours too.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, you gotta know something like that's going to happen. Obviously, you can't predict losing 5 of your 9 starting players,
right?
And not getting your first full planned lineup until mid-August, was it?
Yeah, it was when Span came back, like in the middle of August. Yeah, for a couple of days.
Yeah, but you can't plan on that. But you can plan to have a better bench than the bench the Nationals have had. Dan Ugla still on the team, by the way.
Yeah, I know. He was down in the minors for a while, so at least he just came up as a September call-up. But it was because he was on the quote-unquote disabled list. So that's kind of how that ended up working up. But yeah, I don't want to belabor the point on this part too much, but just there's a whole lot of things that could have got better. I mean, I assume we want to talk about Matt Williams a little bit, or have we beat that horse to death?
Let's talk about it just a little bit more, just because I love talking about it.
Yeah, I know.
Go for it.
No, you go. Go ahead.
Oh, geez. I like that bass. As sure as Craig drinks beer.
Yeah, that's a good one. I saw that too.
And by the way, this is very fitting for my wonderful first 20 minutes. I'm drinking a beer called Blithering Idiot. So
that worked out well, didn't it?
I pretty much nailed that. Yeah, Matt Williams, honestly, we've talked ad nauseum about how he's a poor in-game manager.
Yeah.
He's very poor.
Last year when the Nationals won 96 games, we talked about how he was a piss poor in-game manager.
He was a very good September manager when he had a 40-man roster at his disposal. And then the second the playoffs rolled around, he was back to his old self.
Right.
He's recently in the 5-game stretch of just absolutely atrocious bullpenness. There was some Matt Williams doing. There was some not Matt Williams doing. But
sure.
It seems like, if anything, he's regressed in his bullpen management. And he's become more entrenched in this is my guy. He has to pitch in this inning. He has to pitch the 7th. He has to pitch the 8th. And, of course, we have to have our closer for the 9th. Which is just one of the worst ways to think of things because, the most important part of a game could be the last 2 outs of the 7th inning. It could be the last 2 outs of the 6th inning. And, yeah, you don't often see major league designated closers coming in those situations. Actually, you never see it. But you go to your second best guy.
Right.
You want to go to someone good. You don't want to throw a Matt Grace out there.
Right.
To try and, strike out Jonas Cespedes with runners on second and third and 2 outs. You don't want to put him in a situation like that.
Right.
You want your best guys there. And more often than not, you're seeing major league managers start to put their closer in the game in, I'm trying to think of the exact wording of the scenario, but in a tie game on the road.
Right.
And you saw the Nationals get burned by that.
Right.
The Nationals went to a less than stellar pitcher, and the Nationals didn't make it to extras because Matt Williams said he needed to get to extras. He wanted to make sure he had someone to save the game.
Right.
And the reason why that's a problem is you don't know. You have, first off, you have to get to extras.
You have to get there. Exactly. That's the problem. You have to get there.
First off, you have to get there. Second off, with the way the Nationals offense has been this year, and honestly, the offense, if you look at the total numbers, they are right, actually, I think, above last year's team in terms of offensive efficiency. I haven't looked. Maybe while I'm blithering idiot on, maybe you can give that a quick baseball reference glance. But I'm pretty sure the offense is doing pretty darn well. But you don't know if when you get to that 10th inning, you're going to need your offense is going to score 5-6 runs in the top of the 10th. And it's not going to be a safe situation. And you can have Sammy Solis or AJ Cole come in and maybe give up a run or two, but it's not a save situation. You don't know if you're going to even need your closer to close out the game to get a save. You don't know what the situation is going to be, but you have to get to the situation. And that's been one of the biggest problems I've seen of late. He's just becoming more entrenched. And honestly, I think the craziest part about everything is that he's still employed.
Yeah.
Like everyone knows that he's done. Like, I don't think there's a question. There's a lot of stories about how he's lost the locker room, that a lot of the players don't like how rigid and how tight he is during games and before games and after games. A lot of players just don't like and might not mesh with that style. And it's a shame, but if you look at, what is it, Brad Ausmus with the Tigers?
Yeah.
They've pretty much told him he's done at the end of the year, which I think if you're just going to do that, you just need to let him go and just limp out the rest of the season with an interim.
Yeah.
But I just have no idea how, after all of this, after all of the just horrible management and wrong decisions that have just built over the last couple months in the Nationals' second half swoon, that he's still employed. Like, yeah. I just don't understand. I mean, he's got to know that he's done.
Yeah, I think at this point there's no question that he's done, and it's very interesting because since you brought it up, I wanted to talk about one of the questions that was asked because it's really right on topic with what we're talking about. But I tend to, not saying that getting rid of Matt Williams at this point will do anything to change the season. It will not.
It will absolutely do nothing.
Yeah. Except
maybe give someone like Randy Knorr a chance.
But not even that, like, whatever you think of Matt Williams, not like, if you're just gonna fire the guy and everybody knows it, have some respect for the guy.
Right.
Say, listen, we know this is done. It's over. To say like, okay, this is done. It's over, but you got to finish out the year is just like, it's just cruel to everybody involved in the situation.
Right. I mean, how are the Nationals supposed to? How are the call-ups supposed to, get any sort of positive experience right now?
Exactly.
It's not happening.
Exactly. And on that note, John Feng asks, is the inexperienced rookie manager idea dead? See Matt Williams and Brad Ausmus. And it's a really good question because I feel like for a while there, it was a thing that happened. There was another manager that was hired around the same time that did not turn out. And I can't think of who it was.
Do you remember the team?
No. Wasn't Rick Renteria hired around the same time?
Maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. But Oh yeah, no, maybe Rick Renteria was hired to replace Bud Black for no reason whatsoever, but we'll get into that. But Feng, I think you bring up a good point. I think that people are going to look at how that kind of experiment went, and look what happened with a guy like Kirk Gibson in Arizona who got fired, and maybe even look at a guy like Don Mattingly who has that roster but can't seem to do it. Good point. Feng says again, AJ Hinch was a bit of an unmitigated disaster.
Right.
So there have been a lot of issues with first-time managers, and then you see a guy like Dale Swaim get fired from the Cubs. Joe Madden goes in there with that team, and surprise, they're going to make the playoffs.
Yep.
Experienced managers with good teams make good results. I mean,
here's the thing. I really don't have too much of a problem with rookie managers. I mean, they have to be a rookie at some point. I mean,
oh sure, absolutely.
Joe Madden was a rookie at some point, but Joe Madden also wasn't a rookie with a World Series favorite.
Bingo.
That's the problem. Therein lies the problem. And once again, this is a big, honestly, I will say probably the biggest strike on Mike Rizzo's tenure as general manager of the Washington Nationals. This was his first head coaching hire.
Yep.
And it has been...
Davey Johnson was technically.
Yeah, technically, I guess.
Yeah.
But this was the first guy he went out and found that wasn't relatively in-house.
Right.
And it has been an unmitigated disaster.
Yeah, even in a season where the team won 96 games last year, it still was like, well, that should have been better.
Right.
It was just you just got the impression the whole time. So, yeah, I don't think there's any question that Matt Williams is going to lose his job at the end of this season. I don't think there's any doubt about that whatsoever at this point.
Yeah, it's a shame. I know one of the crazy things is, I know a lot of people have been the postmortems have already begun for the Nationals over the past week. Matt Williams is a player. I remember him to have just fire and energy and passion and kind of being a hothead. He has shown zippy of that. I think it was our good friend Ryan Sullivan, Nats GM, said during a post-game press conference, I can't tell watching the press conference if the Nationals won or lost.
Yeah, it's the same platitudes every single time.
It's maniacta.
Yeah, it's just the same thing over and over again, whether they, like you said, whether they won or lost. And that was one of the things that I didn't like the hire at the beginning when it first happened, but it's one of the things that I did could look at and say, well, he's going to have a lot of fire. Look at the way he played. Look at the way he got into a fight with Wilson Ramos when he was the third base coach for the Diamondbacks. He was a passionate guy, would get in guys' faces, the whole thing. And there's just been no sign of that whatsoever.
No, none whatsoever. It's pretty sad. And another thing that I find strange, the National one of his big pillars when he first started was defensive shifts, efficiency, all that kind of stuff. He even hired a guy, Mark Wiedemeyer, to do exactly that. The Nationals have probably shifted less than most clubs.
I think they're I heard something that they're in the bottom 5. And
I was going to say, easily the bottom third of the league. But there's been none of that. There's been none of that forward thinking that we were all hoping we were getting because that's what we were told we were getting. It's just been it's a marriage that needs to be done, and it needed to be done at the All-Star break. And the Nationals could have turned their season around. I mean, hell, they were in first place.
Yeah.
They could have, turned on the Jets and really cruised in to the end of the season, but it just really, it spiraled out of control and eventually exploded really, really badly.
and it did. But with all of, you could look at everything the Nationals have done, and you could look at and what's gone wrong, and the list is long. But you do have to spend some time, and you have to give credit to the New York Mets where it's due. And when you look at what they've done through the year, all they did in the first half was they stayed close. The whole point was they stayed close. They were close enough at the trade deadline in order to say, you know what, we're in a position that we should probably make some moves to see if we can make a push for the division. Sandy Alderson made incredibly good moves and was able to get the New York Mets roster at a point. They were able to pick up Tyler Clippard. They were able to get Yoenis Cespedes. They were able to get Kelly Johnson.
Do you mean NL MVP Yoenis Cespedes?
Yes, I do. They were able to get Kelly Johnson and Juan Uribe. They were able to look at all of their issues, and they shored up really, really well what was going on there. So, it's totally understand being frustrated with the way the Washington Nationals season has gone. I'm there with you, but you have to start getting to a point where you give the Mets credit for what they've been able to do. They've played really good baseball over the last 2 months. I mean, really, really good baseball. And the Nationals have just not, and it's showed in the standings.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Yoenis Cespedes has been, by all accounts, one of the best trade deadline acquisitions of all time.
Of all time, yeah.
He's been absolutely phenomenal, and it's a piece they needed.
Yeah,
and they needed a bench piece. They needed a bullpen piece. They got all of them. The Nationals needed all of these things and stood pat. They made Jonathan Papelbon, who by the time I think September rolled around, or maybe the end of August, he had only pitched in 5 games, something like that.
It was not many games.
It's great to shore up the bullpen, and I'm sure we're going to touch on Drew Storen a little bit.
Yeah.
But you need to shore up the bullpen. Closer was okay. Yeah.
You went and gotten something, but you need to shore the whole thing up.
Yes.
You need to do something.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's before we go on to talk about the off season a little bit, which is what we're going to kind of get into next. Let's spend that moment, and then we'll do questions at the end. But let's spend a moment talking about Drew Storen because it's just so sad. It's sad and maddening all at the same time. To look at what the potential when you look at what Drew Storen has, the fastball slider combination is preposterous, and when he's good, he is literally, you literally cannot hit the pitch. I mean, you just cannot. But he's proven that, just the way he reacted to the Papelbon trade, and I understood the frustration there, but
yes.
You look at what everybody else does in that situation that gets shifted out of their role, you do, even if you don't mean it, you say, I'm here for the team. I just want to help the team. And you try to pretend like you mean that.
Yeah, the ball club is improved by having him there.
Exactly.
Which it was.
It absolutely was. You can't argue that that's not true. But the way that Drew Storen reacted to that obviously had a massive effect on the way that he pitched. I mean, immediately afterwards, he was, lights out. He was flirting with perfect innings every time he went out there because the anger was there. But then eventually, I can't say for sure. I'm not going to pretend like I'm in the guy's head, but it seems like the anger turned into that was fueling him positively, just turned into
apathy.
Yeah, and it just turned into nightmare, which turned into punching a locker and breaking his thumb, which is like
Matthews.
Well, and you look at that, and I'm a huge fan of Ryan Matthews as a guy and as a person. He's a really good guy, but that broken hand from punching a water cooler changed his entire career.
It essentially ended his career, yeah.
Because he was on an upward trajectory to be a very, very good late inning pitcher, and that hasn't happened. And I hope that's not the case for Drew Storen, but I guess really to bring it around to it, any chance at all Drew Storen is in the Washington Nationals bullpen in 2016?
I think there's a chance, but I pin it at about 10%.
Yeah, I think there is at this point, there's almost no chance at all.
I think there's a chance only that, I think the manager is the big decision. And I think if there's, a veteran manager who's been around the game a long time comes in before a trade is made and he says, look, Drew, this is a thing. And they have a talk. And I have a feeling that could be a deal, like a thing that could get Drew back. But but
you got to fire Matt Williams as soon as the season ends and hire a manager 2 days after the World Series is over.
Yeah, that's true.
you can't mess around and hire a manager in January, and
No.
you have to trade Drew Storen by that point if that's the plan. And the question that from John on Twitter was, will Storen's thumb injury lower his trade value even more than his recent performance? Yes.
Yes, it will.
Yes. Just not only the performance is bad, but then you question the character, which GMs love and now can't be trusted. So yes, I think there's no question about that. That at all.
I give it 10%. I think he's gone.
Very low though.
Very, very, very low.
It's just too bad it had to end that way if the relationship does in fact end.
It is. He's been a trooper, but I really encourage everyone to go read James O'Hara's piece.
Yeah.
I think it was on Citizens of Natstown.
Yeah.
About Drew Storen. And that
really
I know that helped a lot of people kind of see the ways. I mean, Drew Storen, we love him, and when he's on, he's one of the best closers in all of baseball. But there is some kind of mental block for him.
Yeah.
That,
and,
it's
hard to blame him as a guy who got kicked out of his job twice.
Yeah.
So it's hard to blame him for not being a little pissed about it.
Yeah. I mean, not at all. It's sad, but I mean, I was at a game earlier this year against the Cardinals. It was a Tuesday night, and once again, against the Cardinals, close game, Drew Storen just imploded, blew the save, and he just has these mental blocks, big situations, bugaboo teams. He just hasn't been able to get over that hump, which by this point he should by all means be able to be passed. And for some reason he isn't. And it's really sad. And it's time to just pull in Elsa from Frozen and just let it go.
Let it go.
Thanks. Yeah, it was
nice.
pretty
Well
good.
done.
Thank you. I almost started singing.
Yeah, I'm glad you didn't.
You know what? I still might.
There's time. So we're let's start transitioning the conversation a little bit into some off-season conversations and stuff. I'm calling this our last call on qualifying offers. We talk about this about every show every 3 weeks, and so this will probably be the last one we do before the season ends. I would imagine maybe we'll get one in, but probably not. And we'll do one after the season to talk about the rest of it. But last call on qualifying offers. We'll do this really quick. Ian Desmond qualifying offer.
Yes. Absolutely.
Doug Fister qualifying offer.
Nope.
Yeah.
Sorry, Josh.
Yeah, no, definitely not. I totally agree. Denard Span qualifying offer.
No.
Really?
Really?
Yeah, I think I extend it.
3 surgeries.
I get it.
In 9 months.
It's a 1 year. It depends on his status, and I know that some of the stuff with qualifying offers has changed as far as draft pick goes, whether the injured year really hurts him. But I think you say, it's $15 million, $16 million. You extend the qualifying offer, see if you can have him, honestly, as a fourth outfielder. I think that.
Yeah, but I'm not going to spend that kind of money on a fourth outfielder.
I might. After this season, I might. With the injuries, your fourth outfielder is going to get playing time.
See, here's the thing. I wouldn't, because I would want someone that can play the corners and hit for power as a fourth outfielder.
Yeah.
You wouldn't want a defensive first fourth.
Yeah,
outfielder.
this defensive replacement as a fourth outfielder probably has less value, I guess.
On an aging center fielder who's coming off of 3 surgeries in 9 months.
Who's fast, but also has never been good at stealing bases. So I mean, I understand where you're coming from there. Jordan Zimmerman, obviously.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, I don't think there's a question about that.
That's not even a question. He's one of the top 5 free agents in the game. 5, maybe 10 free agents this offseason. So you obviously extend it to him.
Yes.
So on to the real
meat and
potatoes of when you hit the end of a disappointing year. What are the Nats going to do this offseason?
Hopefully a lot.
Yeah, I think this is going to be the first time in maybe 4 or 5 years where you see significant moves in the offseason from the Washington Nationals. They are not in a position to stand pat, even after the 2013 season, which ended disappointingly, they won 88 baseball games, right? 92 baseball games, 88 baseball games. I don't remember. They won a lot of games. They just didn't win the division.
They won some baseball games, yeah.
And so they won some games. Things didn't go as planned, but there was still a good core there. Losing Ian Desmond, losing Jordan Zimmerman is huge. Losing Doug Fister with the way he's pitched isn't big, but you're still losing a big arm out of the rotation. And losing Bedard Span is massive. Not having him this year was massive.
Yeah, that was massive.
You had go ahead.
It's like they've already lost him because he wasn't there ever.
And you see how that turned out. And
you saw. I mean, we talked about it at the episode 100. The Nats record with Denard Span is amazing.
Yeah. So. He was incredibly valuable to the team, and so I think this is the first time that you're going to see the Nationals really having to make moves to shore up deficiencies. Now, for me, this is a thing that I feel pretty strongly about, and I'm going to hit a point where there is not what. What is happening right now?
The game.
What's happening?
Jordan Zimmerman just gave up a 3-run home run to tie it.
After the whole season. Anyway, I was like, dude, we're in a podcast. What are you doing over there? Save it for 20 minutes later.
Go on.
So one of the off-season moves that I feel very strongly that the Nationals need to make is they need a new catcher. I really believe that I shouldn't say it's obviously not their biggest move. There are significantly bigger moves that they need to make. So if the Nationals go into 2016 with Wilson Ramos and Jose Lobaton, they're going to be fine. However, if they go into the season with Wilson Ramos and Jose Lobaton, I believe strongly that Jose Lobaton should be the starting catcher.
I agree. I agree with you.
I feel very, very strongly that Jose Lobaton should be the starting catcher.
Yeah, I think from a defensive position, he's a far better receiver.
Yes.
Than Wilson Ramos is.
In every way.
He's better at handling a staff. I believe he's got you can deal with a little bit less hitting from your catcher.
Yeah.
If they're better at calling a game, just because it's such an important thing.
Yep.
So I totally would rather have seen Lobaton starting a bunch of these games lately, because Wilson Ramos has, always been a player that has flashed offensive potential, but he's never had that week where he just carries the team.
Yeah.
Hits 3 or 4 home runs, hits a couple doubles, hits 600 over a week. You see that from Ryan Zimmerman. We saw it a couple weeks ago. You see it from Ian Desmond. You see it from Bryce Harper. By the way, the whole season long.
Yeah.
You just see it from these core players. Hell, we've even seen it from Jason Worth and Danny Espinosa this season.
Right.
Like, Wilson Ramos has been like, I'm going to go ahead and hit 2 home runs in this one game. Oh, and by the way, they're against 2 position players pitching.
Yeah, right.
So I just don't think what he brings to the table is enough.
I completely agree, especially when the defense is as bad as the defense is. And I think that really is it. If the defense with Lobaton was comparable, then we could have a conversation about it. Lobaton is a switch-hitting catcher who is one of the better defensive catchers in baseball. Just that alone, with the way that Wilson Ramos has been playing, should mean that Jose Lobaton is getting the vast majority of the catching opportunities. Wilson Ramos does not walk at all, and he is hitting 230. He's hitting 236. His on base is 263. I mean, He does not walk at all, and this is his whole career. In 2015, he has a 4% walk rate. 2014, he has a 4.7% walk rate. 2014, I'm sorry. In 2013, he has a 5% walk rate. He does not walk at all. And so when you have a guy that does that, that's going to hit you, 11 home runs, 12, 13 home runs, you need something more from your catcher if he's not providing defense. And which is why I really believe that Jose Lobaton, who is under the contract with the Washington Nationals for 2 seasons.
I believe, through 17.
Through 2017.
Ramos is through 16.
Yeah, through next year.
Yeah.
I think that you look at Lobaton and say, and this is what Rizzo was thinking when he acquired him in that Nate Carnes trade. He's going to be around for a while. Let's see what happens. I think it's time to give him a shot.
Yeah, I think if it is that same catcher duo next year, that it should absolutely be Lobaton.
Yeah.
But I know that talking with you earlier today, there's someone else on your radar, and there's someone else on my radar too, who I would love it if the Nationals would splash a little bit of cash and get this player.
Matt Wieters.
Matt Wieters. Wouldn't have to move far.
Yeah, exactly. Just up 95.
We're just trying to down 95?
Down 95? Up 95. He lives up 95 is what I'm saying.
There it is. There it is.
Yeah, that was my point there.
Nailed it.
Yeah.
Yeah, Matt Wieters, 30-year-old catcher, top. I want to say top 10 draft pick for the Baltimore Orioles, has really come into his own as
fifth overall in 2007.
A phenomenal defensive catcher.
Yep.
Who provides solid offense.
Who has a great arm.
Yep.
And catches, gets guys out and just hits all the time.
He's a hitter.
And that's the thing that's so incredible about him. He is a really good defensive catcher who also hits. He is a Buster Posey type player. Not that good. Buster Posey's ridiculous. But he has that kind of – he's one of the few guys who can catch a game, call a good game, and actually hit. It's pretty uncommon in baseball.
Yeah, he is of the Buster Posey school of catching, for sure.
Exactly.
And we're not talking about players who catchers who are, big and stacked. AJ Pierzynski, Wilson Ramos. We're talking athletes. We're talking lean. We are talking thick, sinewy even.
My goodness. All of these terms.
All of them. It's great. But no, we're talking like a really cut athlete. Like he could easily play another position on the diamond and succeed. He's not stuck at catcher. He's not.
Right.
Yeah. So I love Matt Wieters. I think he would be a phenomenal fit where you could see him with Jose Lobaton backing him up.
Yeah. That's a whole different conversation, obviously.
Right.
The problem with that, obviously, with all the Nationals need to do to stay relevant, Matt Wieters is going to get paid, and the Nationals are going to have to put out a lot of cash.
Yeah.
To get him when they have to fill in a lot of other roles. And that's obviously the issue. So other position where the Nationals obviously need some assistance, bullpen, because, oh my God.
Bullpen.
Yes.
You're going to see who's back from the bullpen.
Craig Stammen.
Is he going to be healthy?
I mean, he should be. He had surgery before the season started. He should be healthy for next year.
Okay, so we've got Craig Stammen, we've got Jonathan Papelbon.
Yep.
I think that's pretty much it.
Yeah, it's as far as guarantees. I think that's pretty much going to be it as far as guys you can totally count on being back in the bullpen. The Nats have an option year on Casey Janssen.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that.
Maybe you take it.
I don't.
I
don't know. I think you might take it just to take it. I think it's $7 million.
Yeah, I don't have that number in front of me, but I mean.
Yeah, I think it's $7 million, and I think that's okay because it's a 1.5 buyout. So essentially, you're looking at $5.5 million.
Yeah, that's true.
So I mean,
which isn't bad.
I think you might take it, but I think Felipe Rivero is going to stick around. I think he had some phenomenal numbers. I want to say lefties were hitting quite well. I think you have the number, Joe, maybe, hopefully, or not well.
Rivero, I don't have the Rivero number now.
Okay, I'm pretty sure he was. He's had a pretty solid statistical start for the Nationals. So
yeah,
I could see him sticking around, but that leaves 3 spots.
Yeah, guy under contract for the Nationals next year, David Carpenter, which, yes, he's a player for the Washington Nationals.
Nate McLouth also still under the payroll.
Yeah, well, that's a whole other thing.
Yeah.
But David Carpenter was transferred to the 60-day DL to make some 40-man roster moves at the beginning of the month, but he's on the 60-day DL with a shoulders, and he's a pitcher. I mean, who knows what happens? You can't count on that. So the Nationals, I think Felipe Rivero has a chance at cracking that roster, cracking the 25-man roster in 2016 as the Nationals, one of the Nationals' left-handed relievers if they only stay with one. But there are some left-handed free agents that the Nationals would consider pursuing. I think they would consider pursuing. One is a National that was traded from the Nationals, and that's Jerry Blevins.
I think for sure.
I think there's a real good chance the Nationals pursue him. And there's another former minor league National that I think is very intriguing as far as getting a more veteran lefty on the roster, and that's Oliver Perez.
I was going to say Ollie Perez.
Yeah, so Ollie Perez, since not being a starter anymore, has really been quite good.
Yeah.
Lefties are hitting under 200 against him this season, and he's striking out on average more than 10 guys per 9 innings. He's doing well as a left-handed reliever, and he's 33 or 34 years old, so he's on the older side, but not terribly old. And if you can pair a guy like Oliver Perez with a guy like Felipe Rivero, I think you could have a really good couple of left-handed pitchers out of the bullpen for the Nationals that could provide two different things.
Yeah, I think you're going to see at least 3 new pieces, like free agent signings, not minor league signings, try out, make the team. No, I think you're going to see 3 major league signings in the bullpen. And by think, I mean I pray to Jeebus.
Yeah, if they don't, I don't know where you get the arms.
It's going to be rough. I mean, it hasn't worked, but so the bullpen I think is a huge thing. Let's talk a little about the rotation, shall we? So we've got Jordan Zimmermann, who's going to be gone. Yeah. I would assume, and I think I might have said this already, I'm pretty sure he's going to end up in Wrigley.
Yeah, that would make sense.
I think he's going to – I think of anyone to appreciate Jordan Zimmermann's quiet dominance, it would be Joe Madden.
Yeah, right.
And Theo Epstein.
Yeah.
So and
it'd be close to home,
close to Wisconsin. Yep, absolutely. So Jordan Zimmermann's gone, Doug Fister's gone. Yep. So you've got Max Scherzer, you've got Steven Strasburg, you've got Gio Gonzalez,
and that's what you've got.
Do you give Joe Ross the 5th spot?
Yeah, my personal opinion is Joe Ross gets a spot. Yeah. If Joe Ross is healthy, he gets a spot. He's earned it. He faded at the end of the year because he pitched a lot of innings and is a 22-year-old pitcher. So, I mean, I think that it makes sense that Joe Ross started to fade off towards the end. I don't know who the 5th pitcher is for the Nats in that rotation. I don't know how you can make it Tanner Roark.
Yeah, that was my next question. Tanner Roark, what happens? What becomes of Tanner?
It'll be interesting because with Craig Stammen coming back, I think there's a chance that Tanner Roark stays as the long man in the bullpen, and you start trusting Craig Stammen in those 7th or 8th innings.
I think that's a smart idea.
Yeah,
assuming he comes back, of course, to Craig Stammen.
Yeah, correct, obviously.
But Tanner Roark, I think if he's settled in a role, I think he will be better. I think he was given a little bit of the Ross Detweiler treatment this year.
He absolutely did.
You're starting, you're back to the bullpen, you're starting, you're back to the bullpen, you're starting, you're back to the bullpen. And I think that's just bad news, and I don't think it helps at all.
Very hard to succeed in that situation.
Very, very difficult. So I don't think he gets one of those spots. So that leaves, essentially, I would say the 3rd spot in the rotation open.
Yeah.
By this point, Gio Gonzalez, yes, he's had a pretty decent year overall, but he's been more of the same inconsistent Gio Gonzalez that we've come to know and love.
And he'll be that next year will be his free agent year.
Yes.
So it'll be interesting to see how that translates. Does he turn it on and have an incredible free agent year, or does it get in his head and he have a beginning of the year like Ian Desmond had? You know, you never know what's going to end up happening in that situation.
No, you sure don't. And I know this was a big consideration with last year's Max Scherzer signing. Ted Lerner's getting old.
Yeah.
He is, I believe, upper 80s.
Yeah.
He wants a World Series in DC. He wants it.
Yeah.
That's why if you haven't read The Grind by Barry Svrluga, please do go read it.
Yeah.
It actually talks about this exact thing with the Max Scherzer signing. And Mike Rizzo was so worried. He was like, I don't want to sign. He said, I will not sign Max Scherzer if this means I have to trade away Jordan Zimmerman or Ian Desmond. And Ted Lerner said, no, go for it.
Yeah, which is awesome.
He said, we're not going to have to do that. So he didn't. And so that's why the Nationals came into the year with a super rotation
Right.
that, got hurt and
Right.
turned into Doug Fister. So you've got, looking at the list of free agent starting pitchers, there are some great names on there. Some that are predictably going to make buku dollars. Jeff Samardzija, David Price.
Yep.
Those kind of pitchers. Giovanni Gallardo is going to, I think, get paid. Johnny Cueto is obviously going to get paid. But I think there's some great options out there that the Nationals could really maybe get a steal, like a Jaime Garcia, or maybe I think Mike Leake would actually be a really good fit in DC.
Yeah, that's actually that's not a terrible call.
I mean, Justin Masterson, Bud Norris, the Nationals don't need another ace.
No,
they need consistency. And I think Mike Leake could be that. And he already has the existing relationship with Steven Strasburg. He's not going to command the dollars that the top of the line. He's going to be a second or third tier pitcher.
Right.
But he's shown flashes of brilliance. I think you're going to see a move for one of those pitchers in, a 4 or 5 year deal, not, your 7s, your 8s that we've seen with the big name guys. And
definitely not.
So I think there are plenty of value pitchers out there that the Nationals can sign without having to spend the top dollar. So I think there's going to be a free agent signing, at least one for a starting pitcher. I would not be shocked if it were 2 and Joe Ross was even trade bait. I mean,
yeah, there almost has to be one,
because we haven't mentioned it at all, but the Nationals do own the best pitcher in the minor leagues, the top pitching prospect in the minor leagues, Lucas Giolito.
And we got to move on from starting pitching, but the one word answer, does it any chance ever that Lucas Giolito is with the Nats opening day?
I think there's absolutely a chance.
Do you really? I think
do.
There's no chance at all.
I think there's a chance.
Finish the season at Double-A. They shut it down early. There's no chance.
I think they wouldn't have sent him to Double-A if that weren't at least a possibility.
Yeah, maybe.
I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I'm saying, why do you send him to? Honestly, Double-A is where you send the top prospects. When
of course.
Just about ready. It's not Triple-A. It's Double-A.
Yeah, Double-A.
So why do you send him there for a month? If there's not the chance.
There's always a chance, I guess, but I think it's unlikely. But so looking to the loss of Ian Desmond, which is, as we've talked about several times, basically a foregone conclusion at this point. Can you trust a middle infield of Trey Turner and Danny Espinosa?
No.
Yeah, I don't know how you do. Escobar is probably in that equation, but you have to imagine Yunel Escobar is going to be trade bait this offseason because he's going to finish the season hitting 320 and he has another year of control and the Nationals need bullpen arms. Yeah. So you have to at least consider trading Escobar in order to get something of value back. But at the same time, Danny Espinosa, nobody in the world was happier than me that Danny Espinosa had the year that he had this year. But man, I don't. That's not a middle infield that I feel like I can really get behind for 162 baseball games.
Yeah, I can get behind Yunel Escobar at second base.
I was going to say, can you get behind Turner Escobar then?
I absolutely can. I don't think the Nationals will need to trade Yunel Escobar, and I don't think there's any reason they should, solely because, as we talked about, there are good, affordable bullpen arms that have experience. I don't think you need to make that trade when, depending on the signings, you will have other pieces to trade, like a Joe Ross type player.
Yeah.
But I would absolutely be fine with seeing a Rendon third base, Trey Turner shortstop, Yunel Escobar at second base, infield. I would have absolutely no problems with that because, once again, shortstop traditionally is a position where you don't necessarily need a lot of power from because you're supposed to get that from your corners.
Right.
Which I think if healthy, the Nationals would be able to do that. And Trey Turner, he hasn't done it yet, but every single level he has been at in the minor leagues, he's taken about a week and a half, 2 weeks of consistent plate appearances, keyword being consistent plate appearances, and he has turned it into 320 every single time.
Yep.
He's a hitter. He's not going to hit you a lot of power, but he's a hitter. And you can deal with that from a 7-8 hitter, no problem.
Right. And when you were talking about infield, you mentioned 3 positions. You didn't mention the first base one, which is Ryan Zimmerman, which we kind of talked about earlier, with which you just know he's going to get hurt every year. It's a foregone conclusion with the foot. The foot doesn't go away. Plantar fasciitis doesn't end.
No,
you just
does
have
not.
plantar fasciitis. So the Nata dude asks, and so this was a great question. So I wanted to bring it up since we were on the topic. Can the Nats do anything more going into 2016 to mitigate the issue of Zim's poor and declining health, or is the answer simply Clint Robinson?
Honestly, I would not have said this a month ago. I think it's Clint Robinson.
I totally agree with you. The defense is so bad.
It's bad.
He made a play when I was watching the game today for a minute that Jordan Zimmerman backed him up on. But I mean, the defense, even at first base, is bad.
It's not good. But we've seen Adam Dunn at first base.
Yeah, I mean,
we've seen Dimitri Young at first base.
Yeah, I mean, you don't need that guy to be your best defensive player. You just need him to block most balls and do a decent job. And I think that, you look at first base free agents and you look at what the Nationals can do. I think that that's the only logical answer is to have Clint Robinson come back, hope that you could have a sophomore, a great sophomore season at 31 years old in case you need to call on him.
And the good thing is, I mean, if the infield were Rendon, Trey Turner, and Yunel Escobar, or even, dare I say, Asdrubal Cabrera, who is a free agent, and I know everyone is a fan in this in Nats Twitter, you have good defenders.
Yeah,
you have good defenders with decent to average to above average arms.
Right.
Accurate arms at that too. So
even throwing Danny Espinosa in as the Ben Zobrist of the Nationals, and you have a great arm as well. So
absolutely. So you can see him not having to do. He doesn't have to catch Ryan Zimmerman's throws from third base.
Right. Which is where Adam LaRoche showed his value, obviously.
Exactly. So I think Clint Robinson deserves to be a member of the 2016 Washington Nationals, and I really hope that he stays. I think. From what it seems of Clint Robinson that I can understand, he seems like the kind of player who, after the season ends, he's going to say, you know what, I'll probably have offers other places where I might get playing time, but you guys gave me my first shot, so I'm going to stay. Because I think he's valuable as a left-handed bat off the bench.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I don't see any reason why you would not want to keep Clint Robinson around. He just is that he can provide what you need. And I mean, I don't think it's really much of a choice to whether or not he's going to go someplace else. He might get offers, but he's under team control with the Nationals for the next.
Oh yeah, that's true as well.
For the next 6 years. I mean, he's through 2020. He's under.
Oh jeez.
He's under Nationals.
Well, there we go.
He's a 30-year-old rookie. So the Nationals, he has 0.028 years of service time coming into the season. So the Nationals just have him under team control forever for no money. He is an arbitration eligible for three more seasons. So the Nationals should really benefit from that situation. But I do think that he becomes a guy that sticks around and probably becomes the first baseman that the backup first baseman that the Nationals will almost certainly need.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, real quick on outfield, the Nationals have to have insurance for a Worth Harper Taylor outfield. You have to have insurance for that. you know that time is going to be missed by those players. So do the Nats stick with a guy like Matt Dendecker, who has shown that, getting him in that trade, despite the fact that he wasn't up all that much and never really played to have guys on the team that probably shouldn't have been on it. He's shown some flashes of really decent play, being a good defender and being fast. Does he make sense to be the Nationals' fourth outfielder in 2016?
Yes.
Yeah, I think it does too, with a guy that that you're going to be able to keep around on the cheap.
On the cheap, left-handed, speed, good defense. I think you need that out of one of your two backup outfielders. I think one's got to be a corner guy with some pop that can be a great pinch hitter. Another's guy's got to be a Dendecker type who can drop down a bunt for a base hit, come in to pinch run, give you a great defensive replacement for a player like Jason Worth.
And on top of it, as we just talked about, under Nationals control through 2020. So the Nationals have him around for a while, and so it'll be good to have him around. You imagine that he'll be in the big club. I don't know what his option situation looks like. That would be the only thing.
From Based and Confused, Clint Robinson does have a lot of bats, so
that
does also go in his favor.
And he knows what to do with them.
Yes.
That seems to be for sure. So real quick here on also from the artist formerly known as Jack O'Beam, puts a guess out for Harper next year. A 340, 470, 600 slash line with 40 home runs and 120 RBIs, yes or no?
Don't think he's going to hit 340. I'd say 310. I don't have the other numbers in front of me.
470, 600.
I don't think he gets on base at 470. I think it's more 440, 430. Yeah. Slugging, yep, I'm okay with that. That sounds right. 40 home runs, yep, for sure. This is, of course, assuming full health.
Yeah.
I don't think he's going to get the 120 RBIs just because I don't know how consistent the table setting will be. It takes some serious on-base skills in front of you to be able to drive in that many runs. And I think it honestly is partially going to depend on who the manager is, because
yes,
I mean, right now you're seeing players hitting first, second, and third in the lineup that have sub 300s on base percentage. You're not going to get RBIs with that.
Yeah.
So I think if you get a smart manager in there who puts your high OBP guys at the top of the order, then yeah, it's a possibility. It's a possibility, but I think 100 is possible. I don't think 120 is possible.
Yeah.
But I would like to be proved wrong.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would say that I would love to see Harper next year have a 300 batting average, a 430 on base percentage, and a 550 slugging. I think even that would be a remarkable follow-up to a season. Now, he could do significantly better than that, but I think a reasonable thing to guess is for him to hit about 300. I mean, there are not a lot of guys in baseball history that hit 330 something. I mean, yeah. It is not an easy task. But I absolutely think 40 to 45 home runs is definitely a possibility. I don't think there's any question about that.
From hit the damn ball.
Yeah.
Do you think there will be any attempts to extend Harper this offseason?
I do not, but I mean, there might be a conversation.
I guarantee there's going to be a conversation.
Yeah, but the conversation is going to go something along the lines of, my guess would go something along the lines of, so what's it going to take to sign you? $400 million. Okay, see you later.
You know what? I would sign him for 400, 12 years, 400. I would make that deal 10 times out of 9.
I'm not saying I wouldn't either.
I think I definitely think there'll be an attempt. And I think if there were an attempt, it would be wise of Harper and Boris to consider it, solely because right now he has all of the leverage.
Yes.
He is putting together one of the best seasons in baseball in the last 20 years by anyone not named Barry Bonds.
Yep.
And he has all of the leverage. He should by all accounts, run away with the NL MVP. He has all of the leverage. If the Nationals were to make an offer or to say, what will it take? He could literally say, I want 15 years, 500 million. And it would not be unreasonable.
Yeah.
So I think there will be an attempt. It would never happen because Boris would never let him do that.
Yep.
It would have to be a Bryce Harper going rogue situation.
Yeah,
And he's too savvy of a business person.
Yep.
If that makes sense. He's too
he's a businessman.
He's too good at brand Bryce Harper.
Yes.
To do something like that right now.
I totally agree with you, and there is a lot of value to say, Bryce Harper is baseball's first $400 million player, but I still don't think they do it because I think they wait 2 years and he still gets $400 million. So
easily.
I mean, so some team is going to be stupid enough to pay, maybe not stupid enough, but they're going to be willing to pay $350 to $400 million for Bryce Harper at 26 years old or whatever. I mean, they're just going to do it.
When he's a free agent at 26 with his essentially 3-4 peak years ahead of him, he's going to make all of the money.
Yeah, they're going to do it.
Yeah, he's going to literally make all of the money. So,
yep.
It would be nice for him to do. I'm sure, cashing a check like that would be nice, but he doesn't need to do it.
Well, especially considering there's a lot of conversation about how he was frustrated with the way that the Nationals contract is with him, and they weren't willing to do any renegotiation in the offseason. So I'm sure he wants the money, but he doesn't need it right now, and he's definitely going to get it later. There's just always that question of he's had a couple of injury issues young, and might he be willing to say, listen, I've had these issues, I want the guaranteed money.
Yeah.
That is the one thing that if the Nationals if he said, I want $400 million, and they said, yeah, all right, we'll do that. That is the one way I actually see him doing it, is if he decides, I have had some health issues, this is worth doing for me right now.
Yep.
So
don't think it'll happen.
Oh, I don't either. No.
But I guarantee you there's a conversation. We're probably never going to hear about it, but it's going to happen. I mean, I'm sure it happens often.
Happens all the time, I'm sure.
Because Rizzo's talking to Boris a lot.
Definitely.
So
we're definitely way over on this episode. So
sorry, not sorry.
Yeah, that's all right. It was a good conversation, but we're gonna wrap it up. Thank you to all of you who listened, to all of you who submitted the questions. We appreciate your time.
Thank you for putting up with my technical difficulties. Now
yes.
I know what I need to do to not be as terrible. I tried to be professional, and that's what happens.
See, you tried too hard.
I did. I will never try too hard again.
Damn right.
I promise, Joe.
Damn right. Well, thank you guys for listening. We do appreciate you tuning in. We'll chat with you guys next time, hopefully here in the next couple of weeks.
That sounds good to me.